Hi, my name is Kensley Lewis and I am studying creative writing for entertainment. For this project, I have chosen What is Best in Life for narrative video game writing. We open with Conan peering out over a stone castle wall. Covered in blood, he heads out in search of Red Sonja throughout the empty corridors of the castle. Men decked out in armor lay slain in piles on every part of the stone floor he walked through. This was to be their new home, though bloodshed and sword slaying was their main drive in life. Conan had grown tired of the constant chaos and wanted to make a life with a beautiful, strong, scantily clad redhead. He calls out for her through an empty room in the center of the small castle, but she gives no response. That is, until he hears her scream. 2 years had gone by since that fateful day. The evil sorcerer Kensley, he came to find out, had kidnapped his sword-wielding beau. Searching since the day she vanished, he had endured much hardship. He had almost given up on finding her, knowing that being the woman she was, surely she'd find herself out of this situation if she were alive. However, after rifling through cities and jungles alike, he finds a handful of raging red hair between a broken axe and a tree trunk. There was hope for him yet, as the blood on the axe was still fresh. Following what looked like a warpath, he finds a rather small entrance to what looks like a cave. The distance between the cave and the axe were not far, so is it possible she was hidden away in the rocky structure? The ending of the cave started to near, being 20 or so feet below the entrance where Conan's journey began 3 days prior. With little light, he navigated through the cold, damp corridors, finding torn clothing and broken weapons, all of which he would hope to lead where Red Sonja had vanished to. Upon entering an enormous, mostly empty room, which seemed to be the end, he sees Kensley as expected, but he does not see Red Sonja. Kensley looks dazed or sedated of some sort, and looks up at Conan from a corner, reaching out his hand in a cry for help. That is when he saw a terrified look glaze over Kensley's eyes as Conan hears a maniacal laughter from behind him. Red Sonja wanted any and all glory to herself, so she had enlisted the help of the formerly known evil sorcerer. However, he's only been evil because he was Red Sonja's puppet all along, and now it was time for her to reign true as the conqueror. What is unique about this storyline is that it does not stray far from the comic story, but it also creates a new story that has not been touched on before. Stories essentially have cut and dry protagonists and antagonists, and that is something I want to stray away from. What also makes this unique is that it features Conan as the main protagonist and seemingly Red Sonja as the secondary protagonist, with Kensley as the antagonist. However, Red Sonja and Kensley's roles are ultimately reversed. To attract and reel in investors, I will focus on the plot twist of the story. Ultimately, I will pitch the main story while leaving them on the edge of their seats to wonder how the story will now play out with such a major plot twist. I believe that investors will be drawn to the overall story, but will immensely be intrigued with the change of events that affects the entire story. The main character is Conan, a barbarian above all else. He comes from a background and nature of slaying those that oppose him, and he is not a stranger of bloodshed. He has become infatuated with Red Sonja, which goes against his destructive nature, and ultimately he just wants to be happy. The secondary protagonist is the evil sorcerer Kensley. Though he is seen as the main antagonist, the story sees him through as merely a victim who had no choice but to use his magic and sorcery for evil. He aids in helping Conan battle against the one person Conan had thought he knew everything about. The main antagonist is Red Sonja. While sharing in the same nature of bloodshed and sword slaying as Conan, she has always thirsted for power. Being brought up as a barbarian, she never had the royal power in mind, but rather power that will strike fear into any man or woman and longs to be the sole conqueror of battle. There are a few guards that were enlisted by Red Sonja herself to guard the cave she would eventually lure Conan to. They were guards for 2 years, but Red Sonja decided they'd meet their fate because it had taken Conan longer than she expected to find her. The axe described with the red hair against the tree belonged to one of the guards, and the fresh blood was theirs. Had they found a way to escape, they could have possibly warned Conan before it was too late. And the other main supporting character is the seer. He is somewhat of a witch, and though he is blind, his magic allows him to see the true nature of people. All along he knew Red Sonja to be the evil person she was, and Kensley as the victim. He tried to warn Conan before he went to search for her in the jungle. However, Conan saw him as some crazy old man because he practiced magic. If only the seer could find a way to convince Conan and Red Sonja that Red Sonja was not who she appeared to be, the events of Conan and Kensley could play out much differently. My logline for this certain project would be Conan, A barbarian above all things has realized his true happiness lies with Red Sonja being at his side, but there are bigger things at stake than his happiness, and the barbarian woman must be stopped. I have true faith in the seer if he became a popular enough character. With magic, he could vastly alternate the events that occur in this story and ultimately make it completely different. If this was a route to take, players would still play as Conan, but have the seer as a mentor or something of that nature, and could perhaps make Conan come around to the world of magic and not view it as something awful. I would be open to changing the story around the target market if it so changes by alternating the roles of the primary protagonist and antagonist. The switch would be more targeting an audience that wanted the female role to be positive and the male role to be negative. It would change some of the overview of the story, but it would not affect that plot twist shock factor, which I believe will be the main draw to the game. I appreciate your time and hope to dive into the new world of Conan with you and bring forth the beloved characters and shed them all in a new light.